In 1956, a junior diplomat walked into a high-stakes negotiation in Geneva, representing a country that everyone in the room considered weak. He was younger than every other person at the table, he had less experience, he carried less authority. By every measurable metric, he should have been ignored. 3 hours later, he walked out, having extracted concessions that the senior diplomats around him had failed to secure for years. When journalists asked him afterward what he had said, he gave an answer that should be tattooed on the inside of every ambitious person's skull. He said almost nothing. The other delegates filled the room with words. He filled it with silence, and the silence won. This is the part of human social dynamics that nobody teaches you. The part that determines whether you're respected or overlooked, listened to or talked over, treated as a peer or treated as a child, and it has almost nothing to do with what you say. Most of what you've been told about commanding respect is wrong. Speak up, be assertive, find your voice, project confidence. The advice itself is not the problem. The problem is that the advice operates on the wrong layer of human perception. Because the people who walk into a room and instantly command attention without saying a word, your boss who silences a meeting just by walking in, the friend who never raises their voice but always wins the argument, the stranger who makes everyone at a dinner table subconsciously turn toward them, those people are not running on volume. They are running on a single, silent habit that has been documented across cultures, across centuries, and across hundreds of psychological studies. And once you understand it, you can install it in yourself within 30 days. The habit is this: they have learned to be comfortable in silence while everyone else is desperate to fill it. That's it. That's the entire mechanism. And I know how anticlimactic that sounds, which is exactly why almost nobody actually uses it. Because your brain is going to immediately resist this idea. It's going to tell you that silence is awkward. That silence is weakness. That silence makes you look uninterested or unprepared or socially incompetent. And every one of those instincts is wrong. They are wrong because they were installed in you by an environment that rewarded compliance and chatter, not power and presence. The people you respect most in your life, and I mean the ones who actually make you straighten your back when they walk in, they did not earn that respect by talking more. They earned it by talking less, more deliberately, with more space between their words. And the space is the weapon, not the words. Let me show you why this works at a neurological level, because once you understand the mechanism, you'll never look at a conversation the same way again. Harvard psychologist Nalini Ambady published a series of studies starting in 1992 that became known as the thin slicing research. She and her colleague Robert Rosenthal showed people silent 2-second video clips of strangers and asked them to rate qualities like competence, warmth, dominance, and trustworthiness. Then they compared those snap judgments to ratings made by people who had spent significant time with the same individuals. The 2-second judgments were almost identical to the long-term ratings. 2 seconds. No words, just presence. And the strangers were already coding each other for status, threat level, and authority before a single sentence was exchanged. This is happening to you in every interaction you have. The moment you walk into a room, every person in it has already filed you under a category before you've said hello. And the category is determined almost entirely by your physical presence and your willingness to occupy space without apology. People who fidget, fill silence reflexively, laugh nervously, or rush to explain themselves get coded as low status before they've finished their first sentence. People who move slowly, speak deliberately, and let pauses sit get coded as high status by the same brain mechanisms without anyone consciously knowing why. The reason silence carries so much weight comes down to a simple psychological principle. In any social interaction, the person who is least afraid of the silence controls the interaction. Because silence is uncomfortable for most people. It triggers a low-grade social anxiety that demands resolution. And the way most people resolve it is by speaking. They fill the gap. They explain themselves. They offer information that wasn't asked for. They volunteer concessions. They apologize. They laugh awkwardly. Every one of those moves is a status drop. And the person sitting calmly across from them, doing nothing, watching them squirm, is being elevated by the contrast. You have felt this from both sides. You have sat across from someone, a doctor, a boss, an interviewer, a parent, who simply looked at you and waited, and you felt the pressure build inside your chest. The compulsion to say something, anything, to release the tension. That compulsion is not awkwardness. It is a dominance response. Your nervous system is reading their stillness as authority and your urge to fill the gap as submission. They didn't have to do anything to win the interaction. They just refused to lose it. This was the entire methodology of Hans Scharf, the most successful interrogator of the Second World War. Scharf interrogated hundreds of captured Allied pilots and extracted enormous amounts of intelligence, but he is famous for one reason. He never used force, threats, or coercion. He used silence. He would sit across from prisoners, ask one question, and then wait. The pilots, trained to resist torture, had no defense against a man who simply waited patiently for them to speak. Within minutes, they would begin filling the gap with information they had been trained to protect, not because they were broken. Because the human brain cannot tolerate prolonged silence from a perceived authority without trying to resolve it, Scharf understood what most people in suits and conference rooms still don't understand. The person who can sit in silence longest is the person who controls every conversation they enter. Your boss who waits 10 seconds before responding to a question is not slow. They're practicing this. The investor who lets a pitch end without speaking, forcing the founder to keep talking and revealing more, is not nervous. They're using it. The negotiator who responds to an opening offer with nothing but a long, thoughtful pause is not unprepared. They're making the other side talk themselves into a worse position. But silence is only the surface of this. The deeper habit, the one that the silent diplomat in Geneva understood and almost nobody else does, is what you do with your body during the silence. Because silence with the wrong body language is just awkwardness. Silence with the right body language is gravity. And the body language is shockingly specific. Dominance researcher Dr. Keltner at UC Berkeley spent decades studying what he calls power nonverbals, and his findings are precise enough to be installed deliberately. High-status individuals share 5 physical patterns that they execute almost unconsciously. First, they move slowly. Their gestures are deliberate. Their head turns are measured. They do not jerk towards sounds or react quickly to interruptions. The slowness signals that they are not afraid of missing anything, and the absence of fear is the signature of authority. Second, they take up space. Open posture, arms uncrossed, legs grounded. They do not shrink inward, hunch forward, or wrap themselves up. They occupy the physical territory around them as if they belong there, because they have decided they do. Third, they keep their hands visible and still. Restless hands signal anxiety. Hidden hands signal something to hide. Visible, still hands signal a calm that nothing in the environment can disturb. Fourth, their eye contact is steady but not aggressive. They look at people fully when they are speaking and listening, but they break contact naturally to think, never with the darting nervousness of someone trying to escape attention. Fifth, and this is the one almost nobody understands, they speak less per unit of time than anyone else in the room. And when they do speak, they speak with downward inflections at the end of their sentences. Their statements close, their words land. They do not turn declarations into questions through rising tones at the end. The voice itself signals certainty without performing it. Each of these patterns is small. Combined, they produce the effect that everyone interprets as charisma but is actually engineering. The person you think has natural presence is running these 5 patterns automatically. The person you think is awkward or low status is violating most of them. And the gap between the two is not personality. It is practice. You can install every one of these patterns in your own behavior within a month, if you choose to. Most people never choose to because they don't know the patterns exist. They think respect is something you earn through accomplishment, charisma, or charm. Those things help. but none of them matter if your physical presence in the room is signaling that you are not to be taken seriously. And conversely, if your physical presence is signaling authority, you can get away with saying almost nothing and still be remembered as the most powerful person in the room. This brings us to the deepest layer of the silent habit, and the one that takes the longest to build, the internal state that makes the external behavior real. Because you cannot fake any of this for long. People can detect performance within seconds. The slow movements, the open posture, the held silences, all of these collapse the moment your internal state contradicts them. If you are silent on the outside but panicking on the inside, your micro expressions will leak the panic. If you are still on the outside but agitated on the inside, your attention will reach the people around you through frequencies you don't even know you're broadcasting. The silent habit only works when the silence is real, when you genuinely do not need to fill the gap, when you genuinely are not afraid of being misunderstood, dismissed, or overlooked. And that internal state, the state of not needing the room's approval, is the actual root of everything we've been discussing. The body language is the symptom. The internal sovereignty is the cause. And the way you build that internal sovereignty is by deliberately practicing the discomfort of silence in low stakes situations until your nervous system stops reading it as a threat. Here's how that practice works in real life. The next time someone asks you a question, instead of answering immediately, count to 3 in your head before you respond. The discomfort you feel during those 3 seconds is the exact muscle you are training. Most people cannot tolerate even 1 second of pause before answering because their nervous system reads silence as a social emergency. 3 seconds feels like an eternity, but every time you practice it, you are teaching your nervous system that silence is safe. After a few weeks of this, 3 seconds will feel natural. After a few months, you will be able to hold a 30-second pause in a high-stakes meeting without flinching. And the people in the room will feel the weight of those 30 seconds in a way that no speech could ever produce. The next practice is the conversation pause. When someone is talking to you, resist the urge to nod, hum, agreement, or insert verbal markers like yeah or right while they speak. Just listen, hold their gaze. Let them finish completely. The silence after their last word before you respond is where the gravity gets generated. Most people fill that silence within a fraction of a second because they are uncomfortable with the implied evaluation it creates. Hold it. Let the silence sit for 1 full second after they finish. Then respond deliberately. They will feel listened to in a way that no rapid response could ever produce, and they will respect you for it without knowing why. The third practice is the unfinished sentence. When you are explaining something, train yourself to stop talking the moment you have made your point. Most people add 3 to 4 extra sentences after their point lands, qualifying it, softening it, justifying it, or restating it for emphasis. Every one of those extra sentences dilutes the original point. The most powerful communicators in any room speak in short, complete units and then stop. They let their words occupy the space without crowding them with more words. Their statements have weight because nothing else is competing for the air around them. You can train this by recording yourself in conversation and counting how many sentences you speak after your actual point has been made. Then practice cutting those off. Make your point, stop, let it sit. The silence after a clear statement is where the statement becomes powerful. There is one final element to this, and it is the one that ties everything together. Respect is not given to people who demand it. Respect is given to people who do not need it. And every silent habit we have just discussed is a way of physically demonstrating that you do not need the room's approval. The person who waits before speaking is showing the room that they are not afraid of the gap. The person who holds a steady gaze is showing the room that they are not afraid of being looked at. The person who speaks in short, complete sentences is showing the room that they are not afraid of being misunderstood. The person who occupies space without apology is showing the room that they are not afraid of taking up the territory they are in. Each of these signals is a non-verbal declaration of self-sovereignty. And human beings are wired deeply and ancestrally to defer to people who do not seem to need them. This is why the loudest person in the room is rarely the most respected. The loud person is performing for the room. The performance itself is the signal that they need something from the people watching. And the moment a room senses that someone needs them, that someone's status drops, the silent person, by contrast, signals through their stillness that they need nothing. And the room, in the absence of any demand, fills the vacuum by giving them everything: attention, deference, authority, respect. You have been taught your entire life that the way to be taken seriously is to make yourself heard. The opposite is true. The way to be taken seriously is to make others want to listen to you. And the only way to make others want to listen is to demonstrate through every silent signal your body sends that your words are scarce, deliberate, and worth waiting for. Scarcity creates value. The person who speaks constantly devalues every word they say. The person who speaks rarely makes every word matter. This is true in boardrooms. It is true in relationships. It is true in negotiations and arguments and dinner parties and first impressions. The mechanism is universal. And the people who have figured it out are quietly running circles around the people who haven't. They are not louder, they are not more aggressive, they are not more talented. They have just learned the silent habit. They wait, they listen, they occupy space without apology. They speak only when their words will land. And they walk out of every room having gained something, while the talkers walked out having lost ground they didn't even realize they were standing on. The diplomat in Geneva understood this in 1956. Hans Scharf understood it in 1944. Every executive who has ever made a junior employee sweat with a single thoughtful pause understands it. Every grandmaster of negotiation understands it, and now you understand it. The only question is whether you will practice it tomorrow morning, in the next conversation you have, in the next meeting you walk into, in the next moment when your nervous system tells you to fill the silence with something, anything, to escape the discomfort of the gap. That moment is coming. It might be in an hour. It might be in 5 minutes. And when it arrives, you will feel the old urge to talk, the urge to explain, the urge to fill. Resist it. Let the silence sit. Watch what happens. The room will turn toward you. The person across from you will keep talking, revealing more than they intended. The conversation will tilt in your direction without you having spoken a word. And in that moment, you will understand something that no amount of confidence, training, public speaking, workshops, or assertiveness coaching could ever teach you. The most powerful thing you can do in any room is the thing nobody else has the patience to do. Nothing.